A lot of the other stuff starts at curb appeal, digital curb appeal, etc. But when it comes to actually being sold on the community, at least as it relates to the still in-person experience, it really is the storyteller.
When we invite someone to become a resident, we're not just offering a space, we're inviting someone and offering them a sense of belonging.
Find those moments that really stand out. Use humor. Right? If you're uncomfortable with something, humor is the best way. I'm an awkward person. I use humor all the time. Asking for the ID, I say in case you want to kidnap me, getting at the golf cart, please don't hurt yourself. I haven't hurt anyone this week. Make it fun that stands out because people want that.
Follow-up is so important to our success. Follow-up is critical to our success. What can you do to encourage follow-up for your team?
Are you tired of doing the same thing in repeating situations which end up with the same result? Maybe it's time for a new perspective. This is Viewpoints on the Multifamily Media Network. Our hosts discuss a topic from different angles and provide actionable ideas. Maybe a new view would change the outcome. Welcome to MMN Viewpoints.
The Viewpoints. My name is Mike Brewer. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the ARC Multifamily Group and Axia Residential. And this month's topic is leasing. And my take or viewpoint on leasing, just off the cuff, is this is one of the most important pieces of our business. If you think about what starts the process of somebody moving into a community, what gets someone motivated and inspired to actually sign a lease to move into your communities starts with your leasing consultant, at least the in-person part of it. A lot of the other stuff starts at curb appeal, digital curb appeal, etc. But when it comes to actually being sold on the community, at least as it relates to the still in-person experience, it really is the storyteller. It is the leasing consultant. It is the person that shows up with presence, shows up with graciousness, with gratitude, with a mindset to be in service of that person is looking to find a home, and doing that with a tremendous amount of passion and charisma, and one that possesses discernment and an eagerness to find out what it is that the person really desires out of a home. It's not just four walls, a piece of carpet, and a ceiling. People want comfort. They want solace. Sometimes they want community outside of their four walls. They want a lifestyle. They want the neighborhood amenities, not just your amenities in your apartment, but the neighborhood amenities. They want to be close to services and goods and other things that they need to live in their community or live in their apartment home. And to the extent that the leasing consultant is a fantastic storyteller, they can take the needs and desires and wants of a consumer and translate them in or lace those things into a story that also highlights the community, be it the apartment community, the unit that they are going to live in, and the broader community. In other words, goods and services are all around, and here's how you get to them, or here's where you need to go if you want a good or a service. The storytelling, the passion that you put behind the storytelling, the passion really driven by your ability to discern the needs and wants and desires of the consumer. The leasing team member is one of the most important pieces of the multifamily workflow. And it's incumbent upon every one of those individuals to do that well. But it is also equally, if not more important, that our motherships, our corporate team members, our training departments, our support services are there for the leasing team member, that the leasing team member is taught and trained and coached and mentored and supported. And to the extent you can disappear all of the routine work out of a leasing team member's day, and you leave room for them to really sit in presence with somebody and to look them in the eye and engage in a real way, in a way that feels like relationship, not transaction, feels like relationship. You do all of that well. If we support our leasing team members that well, then by extension, they serve the consumer well. And by extension, you fill your buildings up and you retain residents over a long bit of time. So my shout out is to leasing consultants all over this country, especially here in Atlanta, most specifically at ARC Multifamily Group, and more specifically at actually Residential. Shout out. That's a shameless plug for our company and shameless plug for all of our team members at our company. But that is my viewpoint for this month. Take care. We'll talk to you again next month.
Welcome to this month's episode of Viewpoints on the Multifamily Media Network, where we are examining the leasing stage of the customer journey. I'm Gabrielle Gonzalez, the host of CX Unplugged on the Multifamily Media Network, where we talk about all things customer. Recently, I had lunch at a new restaurant, and it had great food, lovely ambiance, a wonderful menu. But what really stood out to me was the server. Her name was Mariah. And at the end of the meal, she didn't just thank us and give us the bill. She personally invited us back. And you know what? That simple gesture made me really want to return. It reminded me of leasing because the close isn't just about finalizing details. It's about extending a genuine and personal invitation. When we invite someone to become a resident, we're not just offering a space, we're inviting someone and offering them a sense of belonging. So, in this episode, we'll explore how to close with sincerity, how to turn tours into trust, and why the best leasing professionals don't just sell, they welcome. So I want to point out 3 key topics that are really going to help you in your leasing endeavor. The first one is to ask with intention. Great leasing starts with great questions, after all. Not just scripted ones that are on your guest card or that you've been told to ask, but thoughtful, open-ended questions that uncover what truly matters to this prospect. Maybe it's quiet spaces, natural light, walkability, or a sense of community. But when you ask with intention, you actually earn the insight needed to connect with them meaningfully. So it's really important that you ask good questions and gain real insight into this human being who's looking for a very personal experience, a place to live. The next thing you need to do is you need to personalize. You need to listen, right? Listen, use active listening, which means to listen not only to the words people are saying, but also consider their body language, their tone of voice, just the way that they're responding to you. Do they seem enthusiastic or maybe a little more apathetic about certain elements of your questions? So use active listening to really listen and then personalize your responses. So one of the things I always like to point out is that active listening can really be your superpower, especially in the leasing process. It's not waiting for your turn to talk, right? And sometimes we do that, but it's really about hearing what they say and they don't say, then responding with relevance. Tailor the tour, frame the features around the lifestyle that they've conveyed to you. Show them what's important to them, not just tell them how your community supports their unique priorities. You know, this reminds me of a really bad leasing fail I observed years and years and years ago. The leasing associate, gosh love her, she asked the prospect, "So, do you play tennis?" And the prospect said, "No, And so then the leasing professional proceeded to walk the prospect to the tennis courts, demonstrate the tennis courts, tell her when the tennis courts were open, what the hours were, explain that they had a tennis pro on staff that they could sign up for lessons with. Meanwhile, I was observing this tour, and I'm looking at the prospect's face, who was like dumbfounded. Why? You just asked me a question. I answered it that I don't play tennis, and now you've just proceeded to waste my time telling me all about something I just told you I'm not interested in. So be very careful when you're asking questions that you're actually listening to their response so that you can tailor that tour to their unique needs and preferences. And then lastly, it's so important that you then make the invitation. And this is where I feel like most leasing professionals are falling short. And this is where my dining experience really helped remind me of such a great tip and tool that is so useful and helpful, but especially in multifamily housing. You don't want to forget to actually invite the prospect to become a resident. Sometimes we get so caught up in checking all the boxes and showing things around that we forget, or we sort of just feel like that's implied, right? We just spent time with you, showing you all around, and it's implied that we want you to become a resident. And maybe it is, but people need to be invited. That makes people feel warm and welcome. So after you're done, after you've built rapport and you've shown that value, don't let that moment pass. Be warm, be confident, and say it out loud. You know what? I would love you to live here. I'd love you to become a resident here at our community. It's warm, it's sincere, it's welcoming. That sincere invitation can really be the moment that turns interest into action for that prospect. So here's your takeaway, okay? Leasing isn't just about showing apartments. It's about showing people that they belong, asking with intention, listening actively, and then don't forget the most important part. Invite them to say yes, because sometimes the difference between a maybe and a move-in is just one sincere invitation away. Please invite your residents or invite your prospects to become residents. That's it for me, Gabrielle Gonzalez from CX Unplugged on the Multifamily Media Network. I hope you'll tune in and learn more about all things customer. Take care.
Welcome on in. Come on in to your new property. I'm going to be your host, Ronald Harrington, and I host a weekly podcast called Rooms with Ronald, where we talk all things leasing and marketing. And today, I want to give you my viewpoint on touring. So, let's jump in. Touring can mean so many things to so many different people. And I might know a thing or two about touring. After all, since 2023, I have shopped over 140 different apartment communities across the country. So, what makes a great tour? I think what makes a great tour for me is that you are connected to the prospect. You don't treat it as if it's some I have to do this kind of thing, but you get excited. You become engaged in the process with the prospect. So when I come in, you stand up, you're welcoming me in, you're ready to greet me. You might already know some information about me, because if you've done the touring part prep work right, you will have reviewed the guest cards. You would have looked at what I was looking for, my move-in day. If you communicated with me prior, you would have re-listened to that phone call. You would have done all of those things. When I walked in, we were already instantly best friends. Bonus points if you remember my dog's name. And then as I was entering the office, you made a conscientious effort to redirect me not to your desk, because we know I don't like desks, but you made an effort to redirect me to somewhere in the clubhouse, a seating area if possible, where that way all of the distractions were done, right? I didn't have to listen to the phone ring. I didn't have to hear email going off. But yet that's not how we tour, right? We normally come into the office, the prospect walks in, you look up and you say, welcome in. What can I do for you? The person says they have a tour and you're like, great, what time? Then you sit them down in front of you and you ask the same questions over and over and over again. This time you're expecting a different answer, right? Because the chatbot asked it, you probably asked it on the phone, apartments.com asked it, all of these things asked it. And then when we go on the tour, we stand up and you start to just word vomit. That's what leasing agents get wrong. Now, leasing agents today, a little bit different than what I had when I was on site. Back then, I didn't have AirPods. My headphones were large. They were connected to my phone. They weren't Bluetooth or anything like that. So I couldn't wear them. But what I'm seeing is more and more and more leasing agents wearing the AirPods when I walk in, wearing them on the tour, never taking them out, or watching TV or being distracted, which is not a good experience for me. So what can we do to break the mold? Leave the AirPods at home. I get that it's an AI-driven world. You don't have a lot to do, but there is so much more you can do besides watch TV and listen to music. Now that we're actually in the mindset, let's give some good tips and tricks for touring. When you get the ID, acknowledge it, read it, know where they're coming from, where their ID says, because that little plastic card can give you so much information. It's a great way to make a connection. I am touring in Timbuktu and I hand them my Indiana driver's license. This indication should go off. Ding, 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 ding. He's not from around here. He's relocating. Let me see what brings him to this area. Let me see what he likes to do. It also allows you to make a connection. I live in Muncie, Indiana. Not a lot of people know Muncie, Indiana. But everywhere I go, I always find one way or one how person to tie it back in. Recently, I was on a trip and we were in a restaurant and they asked where we were from. And I told them we were from Muncie, Indiana. And in the background of this restaurant, Bob Ross was playing on the TV. And we said, oh my gosh, that's Bob Ross. The lady's like, oh, he's my favorite. I love that. It's calming. I feel like we need sports and we need calming in this restaurant. Fun fact, Bob Ross was filmed in my hometown. And actually, there's a whole experience right now. So we tied it back and we made a connection off that. Find ways to make a connection on the tour. It doesn't just have to be all about the sales process. It's not all about, when do you need to move in? Those types of questions. It's about treating them like a human, right? So what makes them tick? What do they like to do? What is it that interests them? Why are they moving to this area? Are they already working here? How long do they want to be? All of these things we can do in the connection phase of the tour that doesn't come across salesy or pushy, but allows us to build a relationship with this. I was sitting and talking to someone the other day and they said, we're talking about my philosophy on leasing and the sales and things like that. And they said something to me that clicked. You treat it like it's hospitality. And from there, that moment on, it made so much sense to me. Yeah, I treat it like it's hospitality because that's what we're in. People want us to be hospitable to them and treat them like they matter. So making those types of connections, and you can do that all from the ID. Then when you're on the tour, find ways to talk about other things that may not seem relevant to the process, to applying for an apartment, but allows you to build that connection. Get them excited into there. One thing that we get also wrong on the tours is that we think that it has to be rushed, right? We think that we have to go here and here and here and here and here and here, boom, 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 right? And we got to do it in 20 minutes or less. But yeah, we book on our calendars 30 to 45 minutes off, but most tours take 25 to 30 minutes. But I want you to allow the person to fill the space. What do I mean by that? I want them to envision what it means to live in that apartment, to use that amenity. So recently I was working with someone and we were going on a tour and we got to the gym and they're like, and this is the 24-hour gym. You can access it here. We have the lights. We had this. And then it was like moving on to the next amenity. So it felt very scripted. And it reminded me, I'm going to get some flack here. It reminded me when I saw Cher in concert 5, 6, 7 years ago. It was story, move, sing, dance, story, move, sing, dance. And like it felt robotic. So I'm like shadowing along and I instantly jump in and I'm like, so do you like to work out? Okay, cool. Like, where do you work out now? Oh, you pay for membership. Okay, so what do you like about that place? What's your favorite workout? Well, like, are you weights? Are you cardio? Are you, whatever it is, right? What is it? What's your favorite thing to do? Okay, it's weight. So let's look at this weight area. Do we have the equipment that you use on the regular? What's missing? Cool. I am a cardio guy, so please do an extra rep of 50 dumbbells for me or whatever, right? So we made a joke. But don't be afraid to say, you know what, you want to try that bench press out to make sure like it feels like the way you want it to feel, go for it. If you have a unique piece of equipment in your room, encourage the prospect to use it. One property I used to work at, they had a rock climbing wall. Literally a rock climbing wall. Not a big one, but one that rotated, which is a lot harder. And I would say, oh, go use it. Or the water rower, use that. My very first property, we installed a hydro massage bed. So I always had a program been ready for them to lay on so they could test it out. Like I said, okay, so this is the button that you use. When you move in here, you can use this anytime you want. Allow them to fill themselves and see themselves in the space before you move on. Ask feedback questions. Gauge their interest. Then, as we're going along, when we get into the apartment, find moments where you can highlight a unique feature, where you can encourage them to get involved in the process. Think about what's important to them. Right? So when we're on the tour and we say, what's most important to you? And you tell me the closet. That's the first thing I'm going to highlight when we get into the apartment. I don't care if it's in the back of the house or the back of the apartment or off to the side and you have to walk through 7 rooms to get there. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Ronald, you mentioned that the apartment, in this apartment, you wanted the closet space. Let's start there. And then we head to the closet space and we talk about, do you envision your 67 dress shirts, your 40 blazers, your 17 North Faces, and your 52 pairs of shoes in this space? Let's work through that. Right? Because that's important to me. The other thing that leasing agents get wrong, and it's a couple different ways. They Vanna White, meaning they point out the Captain Obvious. And this is the kitchen. And this is the living room, right? I don't need to know that. I don't. I can see that. Thank you, though. Point out what I can do in that space. Hey, you like to cook, you said. Here's our chef-inspired kitchen. Why don't we try to act like we're grilling up? This is where are you going to put your pots and pans? Where are you going to do XYZ? Get them in that space thinking, oh my gosh, I could see myself using that here. And then as you're going through, read their body language. The second way people get wrong is they stand in one spot and let me just walk around, right? They just let me free space everything, which is okay, except for you don't get to see my body language. You just don't. Right. And so if something's wrong, you don't see my reaction to it, which allows me time to think of a way to politely say, I'm not interested and tell you I don't have objections, right? But if you're with me in that moment, you can see if my body shifts, if my face changes, if I let out a sigh, if I smile, if I frown. You can see that, and only if you're kind of knowing me. Then when you get done with that, you're going to say something like this. So, what didn't you like about the apartment? Because my job is to know everything you liked. I already know what you liked. You told me. But it's to find out what you didn't like. And when you do that, that's when the magic happens. You catch them by surprise, and they allow you to throw out the objection. Then you have to overcome the objection. And a lot of people don't, yeah, it's dirty or whatever that is. Address it head on. And if there is something that's a problem that you know is a problem, let's talk about it. Be the first to lead into that. Whatever you do, don't lead with price either. You're devaluing yourself. Find these little nuggets in the apartment to talk about things. So maybe you have a community Wi-Fi fee. Talk about that in the apartment. Maybe it's a cable internet fee. Talk about it. Maybe you're passing the dumpster and you have valet trash. So talk about how they never have to go to the dumpster and how they're going to save time. Get them to touch things, If you have a tall person, tell them to get into the shower so they can feel like what it means to shower. Allow them the opportunity to fill the space, to understand the space, and then envision the space. And then when the tour is done, don't leave the apartment. No, say, so what you think about the apartment? Wasn't it great? Why don't we go ahead and pull up the application online? Let me show you that process. I want you to understand what it's going to be like to be doing things in this new home that you're standing in. That's going to be your home. So let's pull up the application and let's start. What do you think? Do you want to apply? You're going to pay the app and admin fee. It's going to be $250 or all of the things, right? Ask them directly in the apartment what they want to do with that, because that's going to stand apart for you. Because no one else is doing that. They're going back to the office and they're saying, well, if you want to apply, you can just go online and you can do yada, yada, yada. And that's not what we want to do, right? Find those moments that really stand out. Use humor, right? If you are uncomfortable with something, humor is the best way. I'm an awkward person. I use humor all the time. Asking for the ID, say in case you want to kidnap me, getting in the golf cart. Please don't hurt yourself. I haven't hurt anyone this week. Make it fun that stands out because people want that. They want you to be relatable. They don't expect you to kind of come together and be like, oh, well, yeah. So those are all little ways that you can stand apart in the tour. Thanks for listening to my viewpoint on touring. I can't wait to see your application. Oh, wait, sorry. I can't wait to see the rest of this video and for you to follow the Multifamily Media Network on all platforms. Until next time, guys, this has been Ronald Harrington, host of Rooms with Ronald. Happy leasing.
Hello, Mary Gwyn here with PX Multifamily, the People Experience podcast, and I'm part of the Multifamily Media Network. Today, I'm sharing my viewpoint on follow-up. I can't tell you how many prospects I've heard say, well, I leased from you because you're the only one that followed up. You're the only one that followed up. We pay a ton for the phone to ring, the email to come in, the chat bot to chat, the AI to be intelligent. And yet, when email leads first began, statistics were that only 50% of e-leads were followed up on. Now with CRM, AI, all the tools, guess what? Guess what percent of leads are followed up on? Do we have a drum roll? It's still only 50%. No, really, it's still only 50%. And our customers still want follow-up, still need follow-up. They need help making their housing decisions. After all, what people pay in rent is the single biggest expenditure for most of our customers, and they need our help. What people pay in rent is typically their biggest single expenditure. So following up and seeing how to help them make the best outcome for this high price tag decision is really crucial. But I'm going to carry it a little further. I don't want to talk about the prospect experience right now. I want to talk about the customer experience when it becomes a resident experience. A resident experience. They love follow-up too. In fact, I recently had the opportunity to speak about the topic of the resident experience along with Paul Rhodes, who's an incredible trainer. He's an incredible speaker, and he does funny podcasts on the Multifamily Media Network, but he's also a wonderful friend. So we, in our presentation, followed the resident journey of his daughter and new son-in-law. And it was abysmal. It was just bad. And while some of it was maintenance or other kinds of issues, a lot of it could have been resolved by follow-up, by someone owning the problem and following up to make sure the AC was fixed or the leak was fixed or the toilet well, you get the idea. In fact, it's a fortunate thing that Paul has the skills he does, because when the apartment community didn't follow up on some of his daughter's repairs, Paul just fixed them. But let's face it, not all of us have a Paul. So learning follow-up, and follow up again is a much better way. It's more scalable and it gets us better reviews. I listened to an interview with a fascinating person, Horst Schultz, who was the former CEO of Ritz-Carlton. And one of the reasons they've been so successful and have such an incredible reputation for customer service, it boils down to how issues are followed up on. The way they do it in their culture, their organization, is the person who receives the issue owns it till it's resolved. The person who receives the issue or problem owns it till it's resolved. He hears it, he gets it on the phone, he or she gets it at the front desk or walking the property or in an elevator. That person who receives the complaint owns it till it's resolved. And here's a big additional piece. Each employee, from the gardener to the bellman to the general manager to the housekeeper, is given a budget for how much they're allowed to spend to resolve any issue. Each person is given a budget, the same budget, regardless of their role, regardless of their position. They're all given the same budget to resolve an issue. The way he figured it, Holtz figured it, he summarized it to the potential lifetime value of the customer if they followed up and did a great job. The potential lifetime value of their customer being a repeat person, a repeat guest in their hotel. And they boiled it down to a price tag for that. What was that worth? We've already said among you and me that apartment rent is the biggest annual expenditure for most of our customers. It's the biggest expenditure. So why don't you put a price tag on that potential resident lifetime value and authorize the follow-up, the team member that owns that follow-up, that problem, that issue, owning it to a successful conclusion, following up and having the authority to make a financial decision, if needed, to save the resident experience. Give whoever has the problem ownership of the problem, and then the authority to make a decision and even make a financial decision to save the resident experience. Imagine what that would do to resident retention and reviews. Even more, imagine what that would do to your employee satisfaction and employee retention. Imagine. So circling back, follow-up is so important to our success. Follow-up is critical to our success. What can you do to encourage follow-up for your team? Follow up with me and let me know what you change in your organization as a result of us talking about follow-up. Hey, I'm Mary Gwyn. I am with the PX Multifamily, the People Experience podcast, part of the Multifamily Media Network, and so excited to talk to you about following up.
Before you leave this episode, answer these questions for an action plan based on the perspectives you've heard today. First, what idea caught my attention? Second, What was identified as something that I need to discontinue? The answers noted are a place to start for improved success. To go deeper, check out the shows by hosts you've heard from today. Thank you for being open to different viewpoints. This has been a Multifamily Media Network production.